Hello and welcome to Beyond the Extra Vibe.
Very good.
We're having a bit of a bonus episode.
We are indeed, Mr. Macy. We're utilising the platform that every bugger else has been using for about 2 years.
Yes.
We've done it at the end. Hopefully, what is the end of the lockdown? And we've, I'm in my studio at home, and you're where I normally am. Are you missing me?
Well, we're doing okay. We're here. You know,
he's surviving. He's really missing me. So today, it's been a week. Yes, it's probably been less than a week though since I've started. So what we thought we'd do today, as a bit of extra vibe, is have a reaction to the Planet Rock, the Rocks Awards. A bit of a different one, right? Would you say? But obviously, due to lockdown, like it feels like it's like no discredit to all the bands that are on there because there's some killer bands. A lot of them are good friends with that we've interviewed as well.
Yeah.
You know? But it feels like it's because there's a lot of bands haven't been able to be out gigging and releasing stuff. It feels like it's a different interpretation. So to say, again, with no discredit to who's there.
Yeah, it feels like generally there's just less that's been released. Yes. I think some bands have sat on things until they can tour it again and stuff like that. But it does feel like there's perhaps less to look at.
Yeah, I think that's what maybe prompted us to do this extra vibe, you know, just to have a bit of a reaction to it. Because I think there's a few bands that we were surprised were missed, you know, that weren't suggested. I mean, just to point out with the Rocks, what they do is you do, on every category, there is an option for a listener's choice. So it's an open vote. But I think a lot of the time people's votes are persuaded by the suggestions that's put there by the guys.
Well, the thing is obviously on the shortlist each time, it's very easy to just click whoever's on the shortlist.
I did that first time, put my hand up. I didn't see the listener choice, you know, so I naturally voted for who was ever on the list, and I imagine a lot of people would have been the same, you know. So I think there's a couple of bands and artists that had been disappointed they weren't seen as, because I imagine the bullet pointed ones, the ones that are options before you get to listener choice, or what Planet Rock suggests are probably the options, you know, the
ones they perhaps feel are the favourites, maybe.
Yeah, so let's dive straight into it, Mr. Vasey, and have a look at the Rocks 2021. Votes have now been cast, but we still wanted to give our reaction to it before Wyatt will be hosting the award ceremony on the 11th of June in a live stream where he announces all the winners. So the first category, Mr. Vasey, is Best British Band.
It is.
So the nominees that Planet Rock suggested, as well as obviously the listener's choice, was Thunder, Crows, Wagons, Deep Purple, Bush, Mason Hill, Saxon, and obviously the listener's choice. Immediate thoughts, no Inglorious?
Yeah, that was the thing that when we both looked at it first off, we both said, wonder why Inglorious isn't on there? Because, you know, we both felt that... you know, they put out like a really great album, and you know, we thought that they perhaps should be included in that shortlist. You know. Yeah, 100%. You know, I'd agree. You know, I think because it does, like we say, it encourages people to vote for the ones that are there. I'm really pleased that Wagons are on there. You know, obviously we've had Baz on the show, and I think the biggest reason for me is that obviously the amount of attention they've brought to the new wave of classic rock. You know, a top 10 album. Same with Mason Hill. Yeah, obviously of a top 20 album. I feel that Wagons, with no discredit to Hill, because it was a top 10 album, are probably, you know, up there for me. And I think British rock fans have got so much love. We talk a lot about it. They just seem to have such a loyal fan base. Very active as well.
Yeah, for the Wagons boys. I know you was a big fan of Saxon's Inspirations album, so Saxon's probably a choice for you for Best British Band.
For me, I would perhaps swap Saxon for Inglorious on the shortlist. Yeah, mainly because. Obviously, Saxon released essentially they released the covers album, whereas obviously Inglorious is original material. And I feel that, you know, perhaps favour original material over over covers. But
I agree.
That's just my choice.
No, I agree. And with that in mind, I'd probably swing Dust Coda in there as well.
Yes, yeah, that's very true.
Fantastic album. So, what would your choice be for best British band?
Oh, I think it would be Inglorious for me currently.
Right. I think mine would be Wagons. I think just because of how they've led maybe because me and the boys in Rivers are part of it, but because of how much they've led and pioneered the new wave of classic rock, great guys, and I think there's just so much love around the band. They feel like the band, when the bigger bands have obviously stepped back, as we've said before we dived into it, because of COVID. Wagons have kind of stepped up to that, and I feel like if anybody's going to get it at that point, it probably should be Wagons for me.
No, that I completely get that. For me, I'm looking at, because obviously it's like 2021 nominees. I'm basing it on like the last year, and I think they put out like a great album. They got onto like BBC Radio 2. They've had a lot of coverage. Seems quite active. I also noticed their fan group as well. They're pretty active.
Yeah. Glorious.
So yeah, I think I feel they deserve to be there, and I feel that they hit a line out now that has kind of pushed them on a bit further. And for me, I would say they are the best British band of the last year.
Cool. So Inglorious for Mr. Vasey and the Wagons Boys for myself. Do you want to read out the full list for best British album?
Best British album, right? Okay.
Best British album. For me, this should be a big accolade. Do you know what I mean?
It feels a big accolade to get. So obviously at the top of there we got Ozzy Osbourne with Ordinary Man. Then the surprise one for me that I didn't even know existed until recently is Smith and Coxon. Dust Coda, Mojo Skyline, Those Damn Crows, Point of No Return, Massive Wagons, House of Noise, Thunder, All the Right Noises. Sounds like a sequel. Deep Purple, Whoosh, Nick Mason's Sorcerer of Secrets, The Live Roundhouse. That's a mouthful.
You
Bush,
did well.
Bush, The Kingdom, Mason Hill, Against the Wall, Ricky Warwick, When Life Was Hard and Fast, and of course, whatever the listeners feel they want to add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Face. That was a big list to read out.
I know, that was a big list.
No,
Not bad for a dyslexic.
No. Shout out to all the dyslexics. The Vasey leading the charge. I don't know what charge it is. I'm not trying to say there should be some sort of like mutiny.
Yeah.
Dyslexia against
we wouldn't be able to spell it right, but
I mean, it's an interesting list. Like as we said at the start, it feels like it's a different year. Because obviously some bands have sat on material. We obviously went out our way to listen to all the albums, and the majority of them we'd already listened to because we've been lucky enough to have them on the show.
Yeah.
A Deep Purple album for me it's a bit progressive and doesn't get me juices flowing. I mean, I'm a big Deep Purple fan, but I think because they're at that stage of their career where they can kind of, it'd be nice for them to come out and just push the boundary a little bit. To just try and maybe bring it back to that sound. Yeah,
I was going to say, like, for me, I felt
surprise people.
Yeah, for me, I felt they perhaps should have gone down similar to what Black Sabbath did with 13.
Tap back into that original.
Go right back to like the early years and tap into some of that. Whereas I felt they've gone into a very kind of experimental venture, which I just didn't really vibe on for me. It wasn't to my taste, but I'm sure there's people out there that enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it's in the list.
I mean, we love the Dust Coda album. Mojo.
Yes. Yeah.
It's genuinely one of the strongest albums I've heard. In the past few years, I think it's a fucking killer album. I mean, the Thunder album again. It's a bit with the Deep Purple thing. I know a lot of people are massive Thunder fans.
A lot of people were buzzing on this album in particular.
Yeah, man, and I don't think it's a poor album. I think they appeal to many classic fans. They appeal to 80s fans, classic rock fans, blues fans. I think that's why they've got such a following. You know, they work hard. You know, and it's if you're a Thunder fan, I think it's a strong album. For me, I personally don't dig it and wouldn't have it as my choice, but I'm sure a lot of people will, and I'm sure it'd probably be a contender for a lot of people. Did you listen to the Bush album?
I did. I was getting a lot of this kind of like late 90s, early 2000s vibe.
Yeah, industrial was the word I was getting.
Yeah.
A bit German, you know, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, and it also has this kind of radio rock mix.
It was a good mix.
Yeah, it was a mix. But that's it. And I don't mean that in a kind of discredit. You know, like some people go, "Oh, it's radio rock," but I thought it was mixed really well. But it just wasn't to my taste personally. But I can perhaps see why it would be in the shortlist. I think there would be a lot of people.
Yeah, what would be your taste then, Mr. Pacey? What would be your...
My taste? For me, my choice would be Dust Coda, Mojo Skyline.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I know that you love that album.
Yeah, I really like this album. When I look at the, like best albums in general, I think of what did I enjoy start to finish, like pretty much every track. It's got to be good all the way through. And for me, I don't think there's a weak song on that album. I really don't.
I mean, again, it brings up maybe some that weren't in the shortlist, Inglorious and The Treatment.
Yeah.
Spring to Mind. I mean, both of them albums, I mean, I think I love The Treatment album. I think Inglorious is stronger, but both of them albums I can listen to from start to finish, and there's no tracks I don't really dislike or I don't enjoy. And for me, my choice would be Inglorious, be all right. I genuinely think, like, from start to finish, like, it's a banging album, man. It's mixed killer. I mean, that's the ultimate. We said to Nathan when we spoke to him, is the ultimate rock mix for me, that album. And it's just, and material wise, I think, as you said, that lineup they've got at the minute is just really strong, and I think that when I look back over the past, there's some great albums in there, like I really love Nick Mason's Source Full of Secrets. I'm a big Pink Floyd fan, but I just don't have it. I can't have a live album in there.
Yeah, I heard it, and I thought, this is right up your street.
yeah, it's very nice. Turn all the lights off, sit in the dark. Come out after 7 hours.
I was pleasantly surprised with Adrian Smith, and is it Kotzen?
It's Richie Kotzen.
Yeah.
He was in the Winery Dogs.
Yes. I was really surprised with that one. It's got a lot of good riffs in it. And it has a very kind of 80s
got a lot of good riffs in it.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good riffs from a non-guitarist perspective. It sounds good.
I'll have to check it out. I'll be surprised if it wins, just because I think I don't think it'll be on a lot of people's radars. But that might be Mr.
Well, that was it. I didn't know it existed until I saw this list. I was like, what? So it's had a bit of a low-key release. I mean, at least on the internet it has. But yeah, I think it deserves to be in that shortlist. But yeah, I think Dust Coda for me are the ones.
Cool. And for me, it's Inglorious, We Will Ride. Cool. So now we're on to Best British Single. I'm not going to read them out because, we're basically
same bands.
People can see them. Like you say, very much the same bands, Crows, Wagons, Ozzy. It's basically the singles from the albums that are on that list. Biggest thing we said beforehand, our first reaction was, I mean, Ozzy, it's more straight to hell if we were going to pick a song from that album.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the album, man. I think it's all right, but you weren't so keen on it, were you? But Ordinary Man for me isn't the best representation of that album. I think it's to pick that. I think that was the headliner, getting Elton out. You know what I mean? Reminding me, Elton, do you know where you are? Is that that kind of vibe?
Yeah, the big problem I had with the album in general was that it has much more evident auto-tune in it.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it just because I think I'd just love a bit of solo Ozzy. Lyrically, I think it's really strong. I think Ozzy's always really strong lyrically. It was produced by the same guy who does Post Malone, the rappers stuff, and I think it's got this really produced vibe to it, and the producers play guitar on it as well.
It just feels very heavily tinkered with.
Yeah, man. But I didn't mind. I preferred it to Scream, the last Ozzy album.
Fair enough.
I significantly preferred it to Scream, and I didn't mind Scream, you know. So yeah, I both think we both said we wouldn't have Ordinary Man again. No Inglorious. I mean, for me, she won't let me go. For me, is the single I think of that and the Wagons.
It's got such a good riff.
Oh, it's killer, man! Great solo. Like I don't mean to continuously say like, "Where's the Inglorious?" Because it is like there's
it's
an option for
choice.
Yeah. You know, anyone can suggest for it what they want, you know. But I think it would have been nice for them to be acknowledged. Dust Coda on there. Would you have picked any other songs as a single? The best British single? Do you think Limbo Man's the strongest of the?
Yeah, I think it's a good representation of their album.
I agree.
I think that's a solid choice. It was the first one I heard from Dust Coda, and it definitely pulls you in. It has that. It makes you want to go and hear the rest of the album. So I think it's a great choice for them. I've been jostling with Dust Coda, Limbo Man, and Inglorious. She Won't Let You Go for the best single. I'm gonna give it. Drum roll. I'm gonna give it to Dust Coda because I feel that I can't do best album and give a best single to a different band as well. I feel like they've got to be together.
All right, I'd have Wagons in it together. You know, again, just for them being best British band, I think that song encapsulates a lot of what the whole new wave of classic rock movement's about getting corny. You know, in Lockdown, it seemed like the perfect song, and it's just, I just think it's a fucking awesome, positive modern rock song. And I think you can't beat that, man. I'm vibing on that now.
That's fair enough. I mean, it is strangely appropriate for the time period because obviously it was made before all this happened. How bizarre.
That best international album was an interesting one for us, wasn't it?
Yes,
I found it a bit of a challenge from what was there. Being blunt. Yeah. What did you think it was missing to start off with?
Well, I think that a surprising omission would be Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah.
I think. I'm a bit in like two minds with Greta Van Fleet's album. It has grown on me a bit more, but I don't feel that it would be the best international album. But I think that they should certainly be in the mentions list in that short list.
Yeah, best international artists that have released something over the past 12 months. I think they've got to be up there.
What would be your choice? It was a tough one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it to me sort of straight off the bat, you know, in terms of, because I'd forgotten. I was saying, where's, Pretty Reckless? There's no Dirty Honey mentioned, but obviously they're quite a new band.
Yeah.
I'm glad there's no Blackstone Cherry. I mean, I love Blackstone. It's one of my favourite bands of all time, but I just think that new album's really poor, The Human Condition. I just think compared to them first 3 or 4 albums, we both agree that, So
no, I agree. There was an interesting thing that I do love to remind you of that the public haven't heard of yet. You put this. They released the single of what was it? I'm in love with the pain or the rain.
I'm in love with the
pain. Yeah. And you put like a really well thought out comment saying that you felt that they could produce kind of a better quality album, stating the early works that they'd done, and they're perhaps
comment. It was articulate.
It was just so well articulated, and some guy below just jumped straight in with just excellent. He just thought it was excellent, so he was loving it.
I mean, if people are
kind of shot you down there.
Yeah, I mean, people might be vibing on it, man. But for me, my choice actually been Marcus King, El Dorado.
It was an interesting choice.
Yeah, I mean, you reminded me of it, didn't you? At the end, I mean, that album, we recorded it with Dan Albrecht of the Black Keys, and it's his first solo record, whereas before he had the Marcus King band. And I just think it's such a wonderful album. Like, it inspires me when I listen to it. It's just so awesome in every way. Like, it's songwriting on it, the level of the musicianship. I think it just shits violently on everything else.
I want to see that on his tour thing. It shits violently on everything else.
Who would your choice be?
Oh, it's such a difficult one, this one. I mean, I listened to Corey Taylor's one. I don't think that should be in the mentions without sounding too horrible to Corey, because I know he's listening. But yeah, I don't think it's his strongest work. Dead Daisies, I think, they're worth a mention, but I don't think that they quite have enough for me there. Foo Fighters. This is where we have differing opinions, isn't it?
Yeah, me and you, we didn't fall out because we never fall out. But
things were shared.
I didn't listen to it until Ryan. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, Ryan. Ryan said to me, I said, "Have you listened to it?" And Ryan said, "Oh yeah, I'm not digging it.
Didn't like it." Yeah.
So I thought I'll have a listen to it, and I absolutely love it. Like, I didn't mention it before I mentioned Marcus, but. Like, if it's very close between actually the Foos album and Marcus, it's just because I just think it's so different than what I expected. I feel like they're experimenting. It's recorded perfectly. With Foo Fighters, when I think of modern Foo Fighters, I can think of them as being like that song "Waiting for a War." For me, that's modern Foo Fighters because that's the only song on it that's like that. I really enjoy it. I mean, the ultimate compliment, as Ryan will know, is I might get it on vinyl.
It's a bold statement. Yeah,
big statement. But you weren't digging it, were you?
No, it's. In all honesty, I got about halfway through, and I listened to the full album, but I got halfway through, and I was getting bored. And that's obviously never a good sign. It was just, they did try some different things, which is credit where due, but nothing stood out to me on this album.
No, that's fair enough. As we said, I think it's difference of opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel that some of their previous works, like Echo, Solace, Patience and Grace.
I think it's Echo, Silence, Patience.
Patience, Grace, something like that. And oh God, I'm terrible at remembering album names, but the one that had Walk on it.
Yeah. See, I'd have them as more modern stock Foo Fighter records, which is what I expected from this, whereas I think this is because it breaks out the box a little bit, but I know you do like that more solid rock core sound, don't you? Whereas I think this delves into different genres, and there's
a song that sounds
where's their mother
there's a song that sounds quite like David Bowie sounding, and there is variety on there, but I feel that it doesn't really stick for me. It doesn't do the trick. I listened to Alice Cooper's. I listened to Alice Cooper's one. Again, I enjoyed it, but
ain't gonna write any new rule books, is it?
No,
I mean,
this is it. Yeah, this is it.
Playing for Alice Cooper.
Again, same thing with Bruce Springsteen's. It's very much what Bruce Springsteen does at this point. He does it well, but it goes with everything else that he's done, and that's fair enough at this point in his career.
What would be your choice, Mr. Baker? Choice? Is it on this list?
No, it's not on this list. God, it's so difficult. Honestly, I don't know.
Would you have Philip Ace? Black Roller coming?
It's very true.
Contender.
There's
I mean,
Phillips.
I weren't keen on that album because
we had talked about Phillips Ace. Yeah,
it's the only option you've got, unless you have the Dirty Honey album.
So this is the thing for me. It's between. Yeah, it's between Phillips Ace and Dirty Honey for completely different reasons. But I think I'm going to say Phillips Ace, Black Roller Coming, because it's obviously very blues rock, but he does it so well. He's such a
killer guitarist.
Yeah, just a great guitarist. Very it's an enjoyable, solid album.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Now, so now follow on from that, best international band. I mean, this was another one where there's a couple of strange ones in it for me. I mean, like Mammoth, Wolfgang Van Halen. I really understand the reason why. Yeah,
I'm gonna cut into you there. It's solo artist.
Would you say that's a solo artist?
It's one of those things. Like I'm looking at this now. Like Mammoth is like.
I think that's the name of the band. He's called it Mammoth, but then it's then followed by WVH. So
that's what I'm looking at, because it's Wolfgang, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, it's Wolfgang from that. I mean, they've only released one single, as far as I'm aware. It's in the videos, a celebration of Eddie, you know, which is really cool. But it probably for me doesn't deserve to be up there for best international band, you know, compared to some of the other people.
Well, it's one video, isn't it?
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like. I think it's more of a nod to Eddie, which is cool. Yeah. But I just don't think it really needed noting. Again, like Foo Fighters for me are pretty high on this list. Probably Foo Fighters and DC. You know, in just because I think they've, in terms of the level of both bands. I mean, qualities of album, I'd have Foo Fighters way above DC, just because I think they push the boat out a little bit more, which they can do at that stage of the career. Foo Fighters are still very current. Within Temptation's a weird one. That we didn't get where that came from.
Well, the thing,
putting up a name on the list.
Well, the strange thing for me was that. They didn't release anything in 2020.
The last album was 2019, I think.
Yeah, and if we were looking at that, I'd throw in the Raconteurs.
Yeah, well, we love that album, don't we?
With Help Me Stranger, because it's, I feel if they'd have released anything this last year, they'd have been straight in there for me.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, it's a difficult one. Again, very difficult.
Very odd Greta Van Fleet again, aren't there?
Yeah,
for me, I think it's an international band. They've been very, very busy. I know. I keep going back to it. I know it's just a suggestions list, but it does acknowledge a lot of people tend to just take these and put the listener choice in. And I think Greta Van Fleet deserve the shout.
I think they definitely deserve a shout in there. I would put them in over Mammoth, because. He's only put in one track. No discredit to Wolfgang, but
I agree. I'd have for my best international band. I'd have Foo Fighters, because I just think they've done a lot of stuff during lockdown. They did that Radio 1 single, or at least Dave Grohl did, and the album itself for me is one of my favourite albums of the past 12 months. So I'd have Foo Fighters. Is there anyone that comes to mind for you? Because I feel like this is quite a difficult one for yourself.
It's so difficult, this one. I mean, we've looked through this before, and we both felt that it was a tough one, this particular international band thing.
So if you imagine you've just gone on the website, what would you pick? Instinctively, what would your choice be there? It might not be your best choice, but what would it be? And
out of those, I would.
Yeah, let's do it out of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Foo Fighters, based on
just that single
the
Shame
outputs.
that you love.
Yeah. I'm going to throw Shame in the bin. I'm sorry, guys. But,
I went to his house once and he was getting dressed to it, and then he said, "Oh, that wasn't that song."
But I watched the this documentary, that What Drives Us. Dave Grohl. And they're generally very active. I mean, that was a good documentary, so I can latch onto that.
Yeah, proper musicians. Proper musicians. I think if we're both going foos, I think that feels strong.
I think that's a reasonable shout there. You know,
what we feeling for worldwide solo artists?
Worldwide solo artist. I mean, again, it's such a tough one. I mean, we spoke about Ricky Warwick, didn't we? Because we've obviously we've chatted with him and stuff, but we felt that he's more known for being in a band with Black Star Riders. He's more the face of them. Than perhaps.
And I really enjoyed chatting to Ricky, but I prefer the output that he does with Black Star is that as a group with Scotty than his solo album personally. Just personal taste. I think the output, it's more what I'm into personally. But he's done a lot during lockdown though. He's done a lot of live streams and he's been working hard. So I can't knock him for that. I think that's a lot of what comes to this decision. And Miles Kennedy, we've not listened to Miles Kennedy's album, and I've heard some really good reports about it.
A lot speak very highly. This was one of the...
Again, do you see him as more of a band member than a solo artist?
Yeah, this is it for me. It's the same thing. I associate him as more part of a band than Miles Kennedy on his own.
From this list, I'd put Bruce and Ozzy as the two main ones.
I
think Bruce stands above it for me just because he's legendary and it's a solid standard. Like, I think Bruce will be going straight back out on tour after COVID, and you'll go and see him and he'll absolutely smash it. And no discredit to us because we're both massive Ozzy fans, but I think he'll really struggle because of his age and because of his health. And I think the Bruce album was a really eclectic standard of what you'd expect from him at this point in his career, and I felt that Ozzy's, as much as I enjoyed it, wasn't that. I mean, my choice would probably be Marcus King again, to be honest, man.
That'd be such a bold one if he did get that, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't think enough people are aware about that album.
No, I know. It would just be interesting, wouldn't it, if they did throw in some lesser known artists. We spoke about Neil Young briefly, didn't we? But we both feel that now he's just kind of doing a lot of reissues, perhaps not as active.
I got Homegrown, which came out in 2020. I got that on vinyl, but that was a reissue. That was an unreleased album. Which he's doing a few of. He did Hitchhiker in 2019 as well. Both wonderful albums, but obviously from a time in his career when he was at his height, that just didn't get released. And then he's doing some live albums with Crazy Horse back in the day. It's cool stuff. It just doesn't excite me maybe the same, but I think it's worth a mention to stick him in there because he's still very much relevant. Who would you have? Ozzy or Bruce?
I think Bruce Springsteen for me, because as much as I was saying it's kind of a like his latest album is pretty much what you would expect. It's pretty much it fits in line with everything he's done, but maybe that's the key to the success. At this point in his career, he's got like an inbuilt fan base that love him. They'll definitely go out and see him when touring resumes, and he'll be there. And at the age he's at, that's pretty impressive, Yeah, I agree. I think it's a legacy award for me.
Yeah,
on Bruce.
Cool. No, I agree. Now, best new band. You made a really good comment about the wording of this.
It's tough because when you say new, how do we define new? Like, for example, Massive Wagons. They've been going for 10 years.
Yeah, Mason Hill, similar.
Similar things. So we were saying that perhaps if they'd have put best breakthrough artist, then it would perhaps create more of a clear line.
That covers Dust Coder as well, I think Wagons are now at the top, closest to the top of the ladder as a Mason, whereas, Dust Coder covers bands like you say have broken through and gone to that next level and been noted for such, and I think that's a better terminology of it. I mean, with that in mind, what would your choice be for best?
If we were going to say like new, I would say Crownlands for me, because they've only been going about 3 years, I believe, somewhere around there, at least officially anyway. Breakthrough, you could make an argument for Dust Coda.
Yeah, I'd agree just because of the quality of the album.
Yeah,
I'd have best new band either way, Crownlands, because I just think it's. I really enjoyed the fact they're doing something that's quite different, very creative. I just vibe on that. I don't think there's enough of that that's pushing and breaking, trying to break the mold a little bit, especially a new band,
Yeah, they do feel like, for me, out of the kind of new bands or breakthrough bands, for me, they are a cut above at the moment.
Cool.
Yeah,
both absolutely loving the Crownlands, and finally the greatest live band of all time. Both of these two are last open votes, so there's nothing to sway you. I mean, you kind of put it into two separate categories there, didn't you? Bands you've seen and bands you haven't.
Yeah, this is it, because you can't really say an older band if you haven't really seen them. So it was a difficult one for me. Of the bands I've seen in person, I would say Iron Maiden very easily. Just so consistent. Every time you go, they don't disappoint you. They do exactly what you want them to do, and they do it really well. And they also have that added element for me personally of, it's quite theatrical. It's, it's like theatre now, isn't it? At this point where they have the moving sets and everything like that. But in terms of like a legacy, in the past, I would say Led Zeppelin, based on the musicianship and the ground they broke through. And I've always heard, like, people that have heard that went to see Led Zeppelin live, everybody always it's imprinted on them forever. So you have to kind of throw them in there at that point, don't you?
I'd have Maiden as well. I think just across the board, I like that concept. I think when you watch the documentary following them, in the early years, it's every level they were at. They gave you the best show they could at that level. So even in the early years, they had Eddie with smoke coming out his mouth above the drum riser. They had the singer who used to cut the blood vessel and blood splurt out. And now it's just an evolution of that. And I think it's just developed over time. And as you've well put, I've never gone to a Maiden gig and been disappointed. I've never gone, I wish they played that, or I wish they'd done that. I come away feeling like they've really given me everything they've got, and for me, that's all I ask for. In terms of bands I've not seen, I'd probably say the Jimi Hendrix band.
Yeah,
to see Hendrix doing his thing, setting fire to his guitar. It's because it's so iconic. I think just to see that in the flesh and how loud it was, where the point where the amps were shaking, it's a different experience to what we know now. So yes, yours would be Maiden and then Zeppelin from the past. And then, I mean, this question falls nicely into how we'd normally end a normal.
It's like the one from the past and present. And we didn't even realise it when we were doing this.
Followed it into it. No, that's cool. No, thank you for your time, Mr. Vasey. It's been very enjoyable.
It's been cool, isn't it?
We should do some more, man, if people enjoy them.
Yeah, if people don't hate us for it, we can do more of this in the future, perhaps. It's an interesting little added bonus, isn't it, in a week?
That's it, yeah. And if you did enjoy it, comment below, let us know your thoughts. If this is your first time seeing us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, click the bell so you never see an episode. And if you've enjoyed this, make sure you check out our normal BTV episodes, which come out every Saturday at 10 a.m. We interview artists all around the scene, rock world, blues world, the whole shebang. A full interview with them as part of our main show, so make sure you check that out and give that some love.
Yes, we'll see you probably tomorrow because with us bringing this out on a Friday, it's a bit different. So we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m.